Hello everyone, welcome back to Greyhammer. Today we're going to be doing a red-eared slider care guide, going over some just kind of basic things. And so in contrast to the green tree frog that we did last week, this is a very expensive pet. And people don't give turtles the due that they deserve in terms of like habitat size, enrichment, so forth, especially UVB. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of that as it comes up because it's really important. These are a really cheap pet. Similar to tree frogs and green anoles that just don't get kept very well most of the time. So let's go talk about that. So some natural facts about the red-eared slider. This is the native range. This is not the only places they live. They are one of the most invasive species known to man. They live all throughout Europe, all throughout the United States. I think they live down into Mexico. They are quite the species that is able to adaptable species. They're really hardy. This does not mean that they should not live in ideal conditions. We'll go over that in a little bit. So habitats, you've got things like lakes and swamps. They like slow-moving water. They can go 12 to 16 inches, and they can live up to 70 years. No, that's on the high end. 40 is more likely. But from that, you should know this is an investment reptile. You need to one, commit to taking care of this reptile probably for the rest of your life. And two, you need to find someone who, if you die before this reptile does, that they will still be taken care of. Because, again, this is a long-lived reptile. It's a commitment. Don't go into this without knowing exactly what you're doing. So, enclosure options. I tried to upscale this to 4K, this image, but it didn't do very well. So just know that's what the tub needs to look like, really. You need 200 gallons of swimming area. I think it's for each inch of shell length, you need 10 gallons, I believe is the recommended. 200 gallons. This is exactly what you need. You can get some aquariums, but I'm just using what Dubia Roaches suggested. I think it's pretty safe to assume that's a good. Now, you can use an aquarium with an over-the-top basking area, or you could even do an aquarium with those floating suction pad things. But I found that the floating things don't do very well. You can make them a ramp and then have a cage above the aquarium. I've seen that work pretty well. But you definitely need a land and water section. And if you can put something for the turtle to dig in the land section, that would be even better. This has a 16-inch water depth, and then it's got the land section here, which you could cover up with gravel and then some soil, preferably some soil that you probably want to just do gravel and sand, something for it to burrow in, but that won't mess up its water area. And then 200 gallons. It's pricey at $6.95. I'll say that. Are there ways you can cut down the cost? Maybe. There might be some cheaper aquariums, but I don't think so, really. For this size animal, you're going to need this $700 tub. You could maybe get by with the next size smaller than this, but it's only like $450. So, like, it's not too much of a difference, and this is by far better. You could, but lighting, you're gonna want the Arcadia Dragon UVB, because they love sun. This is absolutely required that you have UVB for shell growth and longevity of reptiles, and you want an 8 to 12 hour cycle each day, probably 12 hours. This is $70 for this UVB section. Um, so, just some life facts. Turtles, their shell is their backbone that is fused to make this protective covering, meaning that its bones and what's required for reptile bone growth is UVB with calcium. So, calcium supplementation on the diet and UVB to allow them to absorb that calcium. If they do not get this, people will say, "Oh, my turtles did fine." No, your turtles were suffering, but just were very hardy. These guys, absolutely. If any reptile needs UVB, it is turtles and tortoises. It's an absolute must. Cannot stress this enough. Um, they are absolutely sun-loving animals that need pretty high temperatures and high UVB spots. Going into that, we've got our heating. I'm going to advise for the deep heat projector. It gets intense heat for a high basking species. It ensures the reptile is thoroughly heated because it uses, I think it's convection to, because whatever it hits, it also sends, trying to think of thermodynamics, but it sends that temperature back up into the reptile and creates a temperature gradient. This is kind of high intensity here, but it will trail off. You want your basking temperature at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty high basking temperature, not as high as some like Australian species, but in terms of like American Southeast species, that's high. Ambient temperatures of 75 to 85, so again, still pretty high. And the night temperature of 75 to 85. And then the bulb is $30, $50 for the bundled fixture. This is an expensive light, but it's definitely worth it, and probably, I would say, a must-have for turtles. You want that heating. This is another important thing that in the turtle community doesn't get focused on enough. You need filtration. You need adequate filtration as it's absolutely necessary to ensure turtle waste is taken care of, as well as doing 25% regular water changes. Probably every 2 weeks, change out a quarter of the water. You ensure that you use either dechlorinated or reverse osmosis water. So this Fluval FX4 canister filter is for tanks up to 250 gallons. It goes through 700 gallons per hour. So you set that up outside of the. I don't think it comes with a pump either, so you'll probably need a pump as well. Well, actually, no. Canister filter should have a pump in there. Yeah, it's got a pump. Cool. Sorry. It is on the pricey end again. We've kind of brought this up, but this is an expensive animal to take care of. But you have to make sure that you are like, so for one, most aquarium filters are built for animals that don't poop as much, like fish. Fish, when they poop, it's small little poop. Turtles are nasty animals. They poop a lot, and they will smell if you do not use proper filtration, and they can spread diseases to you. Now, this is overhyped, so I'm not going to be like, oh, turtles are disease-causing animals. The salmonella thing is mostly because people used to get them from pet stores that had hundreds of turtles all cramped into one space, and because of that, the risk of disease was very high. One thing about reptiles is that they are big disease carriers. They have great immune systems, and so a lot of diseases don't affect them as badly as it would affect a human. And so the animal can have the disease but not show any symptoms of the disease. So filtration is a great way to minimize the disease risk. But so on to substrate. So I had said sand. This is also a great one, plantation soil. It can encourage burrowing behavior. Gravel can be used in the water section. Coca-Cola sphagnum moss amendments are recommended to add nutrients. $6.99 for the 4 quart. You're going to want to give them more than 4 quarts, but um, so kind of on this, I think sand would be the best option now that I look back on it, because that will give them something to burrow in. It'll be able to stay moist, but it won't um, dirty up the water as much. So that's my opinion on that. Not too much on substrate. It's not absolutely required, but it's way better for your turtle to have something like this. Decor. Um, Relatively sparse decor because turtles will dig up, destroy, and turn over most things. You do need some place they can hide. Um, you can regularly also replace live plants or use some invasive varieties. By invasive, I mean will just grow quickly, such as duckweed and water lettuce. Both of those kind of overpopulate a tank really quickly, but the turtle will eat that. So that serves as a source of enrichment as well, that can combat them destroying any plants that you have in it. Large driftwood can also be used to create things like underwater hides and basking areas. Uh, Dubia roaches didn't really have too much in the terms of turtle decor, so I didn't cut for it in with the cost. You're going to be spending a good bit on decor if you want to make your habitat look actually good with driftwood. There are some great places on Etsy you can get driftwood from. Um, I'm thinking of places like I can't remember the names of them, but you can look quick search on Etsy or eBay will give you different driftwoods that can be somewhat cheaper than uh, other places might be, because you're going to want some big stuff. Feeding. So varied diet. Varied diet. Um, I'm just realizing I don't need the little bar down there, but whatever. Um, so earthworms, great prey stimulus, pretty high uh, protein, I believe, actually. I don't have it pictured here. I didn't replace the cricket picture. Oops. With Komodo pellets, that's a great pellet food. Um, Crickets would also be decent. Dubia roaches is a great staple food. Guppies, um, or mosquito fish, um, other live bearers. Basically, if you can get the tank set up for guppies or killifish or swordtails or something like that, and get the breeding population going, and if you can keep like lots of driftwood in there to give them plenty of hiding spots, um, it would be great to do that before you get your turtle in, and that way they would be a great food source, but a somewhat established population, so you wouldn't have to buy guppies constantly. They would probably still overhunt the population, but you know, um, silkworms, high in calcium, and then vegetables. You need to feed daily vegetables, things like collard greens, squash, and lettuce. Um, Fruits as well. Um, just kind of vary it up. Um, I think we got one more slide. The upfront cost. So the Waterland tub, $6.95. Dragon UVB 70, basking lamp filter, plantation soil. Total upfront cost with no decor whatsoever is $1,150. Um, you could, let me tell you, this is a great DIY investment opportunity. You can make this for cheaper. Um, some plywood with dry lock should make it waterproof. There's several things on YouTube suggesting that it does. That's what I'll be doing. I might be doing a Mississippi map turtle in my vivarium. Not sure. Also, here's something that will make this a lot cheaper if you have it. If you have an outdoor pond and you have it so that the turtle can't escape from the area. So, like if you have like a barrier, You probably want something like a 2 foot tall barrier around the pond. Um, Note with a land section, so like you make a little garden out of it, similar to like a tortoise enclosure. Um, but that would be best, especially if you get a lot of sun. If you don't get a lot of sun and the temperature's not right, that wouldn't work. But if you got if you live in this same general area of like temperate to subtropical, getting a good bit of sun, having temperatures that get around in that range, um, outdoor is going to be great. An outdoor pond, spectacular. Um, all in all, though, turtles are big time and money investments. You have to either A, buy this giant enclosure, or you have to build one. So time and money. But you can probably build one for like, I'm gonna say 200, 250 bucks. And aquariums, I mean, I looked for aquariums that would work, but they were all more expensive than this. So um, I think that's just gonna be how it is. I did have something. Yes, over here. One final note. If you feed your turtle goldfish, um, do not feed them goldfish very often. Goldfish have a enzyme in them that breaks down an amino acid that is necessary for reptiles. So just don't feed them goldfish. Things like minnows and guppies are cheap, so there's no point that you have to make it even cheaper for goldfish. I'm trying to remember what the enzyme is, but it's some enzyme that breaks down an amino acid that is necessary for reptile health. So you can feed goldfish every once in a while, but go with guppies or minnows, and probably not rosy red minnows. Probably just some typical like bait fish minnows. But that's going to be it for today's episode. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if I got anything wrong. Let me know if this has been helpful. And I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.